Hello, and thank you for your interest in the Northern Beaches Council Arts and Creativity Grants. Please refer to our guidelines for full details about applying. This video will be looking at how to respond to the questions related to Assessment Criteria 1, which asks you to demonstrate the viability of your project. In particular, Criteria 1B, which asks you to show evidence of adequate planning with a clear timeline. First, let's look at the overall timeline for projects. The assessment panel's recommendations are due to be submitted for approval at the October Council meeting. Projects that are approved will receive a funding agreement to complete in Smarty Grants. Once you agree to the funding agreement and submit a valid invoice, you are able to spend the funds provided through the grant. Please note that any expenses that occur before the funding agreement and valid invoice are submitted are ineligible to be paid for by the grant. The timings of your expenditure will need to be shown in the acquittal you provide at the end of the project. Projects must end by 31st of December 2026, and acquittals are due by 31st of January 2027. We'll use an imagined project to illustrate the process. In this example, a local art school would like to run a series of workshops and develop resources on accessible art practices. They are hoping to improve accessibility for creative practitioners in the Northern Beaches. They would like to schedule 6 workshops, one every 2 months. They also plan to design and launch a new website to share the resources they develop. They first look at the overall timeline to make sure they can work within those dates. Then, they plot out each step of their process. They plan to start consultations with relevant people as soon as they have submitted a funding agreement and valid invoice. This could be early November. They know they need to allow time for marketing the workshops, so they plan to do this at least 4 weeks before the first workshop. They will hold a workshop every 2 months and publish an online resource throughout the year in non-workshop months to maintain interest and manage their own workload. It's also helpful they've scheduled time to evaluate the project and submit their acquittal before 31st of January. Now, let's look at how to demonstrate this planning in the application form. Applications are managed through Smarty Grants. For more information on this process, please see our website or contact the Arts and Culture team. Each section will show the assessment criteria it is asking you to address. In this case, it's Assessment Criteria 4B, Evidence of Adequate Planning with a Clear Timeline. This first question asks you to outline where your event or program will take place and show approval for the use of that space if relevant. In the case of our example, the art school would use its own premises. Please see the guidelines for more information on venues. The next question asks you to provide a timeline, which includes your proposed outputs and the key steps you'll take to deliver these. Outputs are the tangible services or products your project will deliver. In the case of our example, this is 6 workshops and online resources. The project outline section in the application form will ask you to list these outputs. This question asks for 2 things, the actions you'll take and the date or date range for each action. This helps the assessment panel determine if you have a clear and reasonable plan to deliver your project. This should be appropriate to your experience and capacity, which you'll demonstrate in another part of the application. For example, if you have less experience, you may need to allow more time for some tasks. It's okay if you have already started working on your project. It's helpful to show this in the timeline. As a reminder, we can only fund expenses that occur after you have submitted your funding agreement and valid invoice. As always, the Arts and Culture team is here to help. Please see our website for helpful resources or contact us. This question asks you to fill out a table showing the outputs and actions described earlier, and the dates or timeframes when you'll do those things. Let's have another look at what our example timeline looks like. And this is how that looks in the table. It's okay if you enter specific dates or a date range. Please be as clear as possible to demonstrate your planning to the assessment panel. If in doubt, add more detail rather than less. This will also help in your own project planning. Once you have completed a question, we always recommend saving your progress. This will help ensure your work isn't lost. You're then ready to move on to the next question. Thank you for watching. For more resources and to apply, visit our website or contact us at creative@northernbeaches.nsw.gov.au or call on 1300 434 434.